But you know, there is more to life than people checking out your folks. David here on the Vintage Future once again. Hope everyone's doing well. And today I want to highlight for you what to me is pretty much the most underrated raw denim jean in the world. I am talking about the Wrangler 13MWZ. And I know you're probably saying already, that's a cowboy jean, not interested. Or that's what all the old men in my town wear. Well, let me challenge you with that and say maybe the old guys know what's up. This jean is actually incredibly well made. In my opinion, it's a better design than the Levi 501. I think it's a great design, and also the price is incredible. Now, there might be an ethical issue there. I don't know. That's a whole different topic. But after taxes, these Wrangler jeans, in their rigid raw form, after taxes and shipping, $40 US. If you get them on sale, they're less than that. I think this is the best deal you're going to get on raw denim. This jean is just outstanding, and I want more people to be wearing these. And, you know, if you don't like the cowboy thing, you can just cut off the back patch and then use a seam ripper and gently and patiently take those two back arcuates off, the big W's. And after that, it just looks like a jean because it's basically the same dimensions as a Levi 501 with a couple little differences. And so once you take those arcuates off and that back patch, it doesn't look like a cowboy jean anymore. It's just a jean. It's just a classic straight fit. There's a reason it's famous. There's a reason why it's a mainstay of the whole, like, you know, rodeo country music scene and all that ever since the 1940s. So with that, I want to talk to you about the jean. I want to start with the history because part of the beauty, part of the masterpiece is actually the lineage and understanding how this jean came to be. This story actually starts with two companies that are not the Wrangler company. The first company, in 1904, Hudson Overall Company, is started by C.C. Hudson in the USA. The next year, another company called Casey Jones Work Clothes Company gains the rights to this name called Wrangler. From what I can tell in my research, they never actually did anything with the name. And so I don't know what they were going to do with it. Maybe they were going to make a line of jeans or a line of work clothes because they were a work clothes company. But they got the rights to this name and then just kind of held on to it. Time goes on, 1919 comes, and Hudson Overall Company changes its name to Blue Bell Incorporated. And they're still making work clothes and overalls at this point. They're not really making jeans as we think of jeans. And time goes on. In 1943, the Casey Jones Work Clothes Company is purchased by Blue Bell Incorporated. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because Casey Jones was tanking. They were acquired by Blue Bell. Then Blue Bell designed this whole line of mainly Western wear, but workwear under the name brand Wrangler. So Wrangler became a brand of Blue Bell Incorporated. So nothing really happened during the World War itself. But after the war ended in 45. In 1947, Wrangler released its first jean. This jean was called the 11MW. MW stands for men's Western. So it's the 11-ounce fabric men's Western jean. These were not selvage as far as I know. It had a button fly. It had 7 belt loops, smooth copper rivets, a leather back patch on the back right pocket, and not a W arcuate. There was a different kind of arcuate design actually at the time, but there was one problem. Levi was making a big stink that Lee and Wrangler and other companies were making arcuates and patches and all this stuff that they thought was a trademark to their company. So Lee had to change a few of its design aspects. That's where you get the twitch patch, their famous Lee twitch patch, and the Lazy S arcuate and all that stuff. And Wrangler had to change their arcuate. And so in 1948, the year after it was released, the 11MW now had a W on the back pocket. The new arcuate was this giant W on each of the back pockets. Wrangler or Wrangler Western or Western wear, there's a bunch of different theories about that out there. I'm not sure which of them is true. I've heard all of them. But it was two big W's, and that's what we think of when we think of Wrangler. Immediately, Wrangler started making this marketing push, garnering the support of famous rodeo stars at the time. And so seemingly overnight, the Wrangler jean became the favored jean of the American rodeo circuit. And not too many years went by before they were like the official jean of the US rodeo, and are until this day in 2024. 2 years later, in 1950, they started adding zippers to stuff. The jean was now called the 11 MWZ, the 11-ounce fabric men's Western zipper jean. From studying vintage garments, we can tell that at this time they also stopped using the leather patch on the back right pocket and replaced it with either a plastic one or a paper one. In 1952, Wrangler changed the fabric of this famous jean to a 13-ounce fabric and changed the name from the 11 MWZ to the 13 MWZ, 13-ounce fabric men's Western zipper jeans. Fast forward to 1963, and this jean is already super legendary among the Western scene in the United States, and they finally changed it to the fabric we have now, the 14.75 ounce broken twill sanforized fabric. Why they didn't change it to the 14 MWZ is beyond me. They left the name as the 13 MWZ. Maybe it was because that was the identifiable popular name by then, and so they didn't want to change it for branding purposes. So things just continued to go on without a hitch for quite some time for Wrangler as they became more and more solidified into American Western culture, until 1986 came along and VF Corporation acquired the company. So they bought Bluebell, which was the company, along with its whole Wrangler line of jeans and jackets. VF Corporation is the same company that had also bought Lee years before and will ultimately come to own Timberland and a bunch of other brands that we're familiar with these days. In 2019, however, a new brand was formed called Contour Brands, and they split off of VF Corporation to form their new brand, taking with them Lee, Wrangler, and Rock and Republic. So what makes this jean so fabulous? It is like essentially the same dimensions as any classic straight cut jean. So think Levi 501, my Free Note Belfords, my Warehouse 1001s, my Naked and Famous True Guys. They're like a mid to high rise jean with that classic straight leg. There's nothing about this jean that's weird. It's not like people aren't wearing it because it's a wonky fit. In fact, it's a fantastic fit, and it's a fantastic look and fantastic silhouette because it basically just looks like every other classic straight fit jean out there. And then there's the price. That's amazing. But it's some of the features that really caused me to fall in love with it and captured me. So the biggest thing to me is actually the 7 belt loops. I have this big pet peeve with jean design, okay? And it's across the board. It's like everything Levi, all the nice brands, Samurai, Tanuki, Oni, Warehouse, TCB, like I'm knocking everybody, okay? Because anybody who only has 5 belt loops, you end up with this problem, especially if you're of larger stature, you know, you're not a little stick man like me. Like if you have like some meat on your bones, some muscles, you've got a rear, you got thighs, you got hips. What happens is if you only have 5 belt loops, that means there's only really 1 belt loop in the back center. And so your pants keep wanting to come down and the belt's pulling it up only at that center point. And so what you get is like where your belt is at that center belt loop in the back, your pants are staying up there, but everything else is like pulling down, it's sagging down beneath that. Obviously, some of this has to do with poor fit, but even if you have a good fit, I see that the waistband begins to fall beneath the belt on like everybody's jeans. And I'm always like, dude, there should be 2 other belt loops right there. And guess what? Wrangler did that from the get-go, 7 belt loops so that your waistband doesn't fall at all. And does it look weird? No. Does anybody even look at your belt loops? No. So you can't say, oh, it's aesthetically more pleasing to have 5 belt loops. I think that's a bunch of hogwash because like nobody's sitting there staring at your belt loops. But I am going to stare at your waistband if it's like sagging down on either side of that center belt loop. I do not understand why Levi and all these other companies, even the ones, Momotaro, all these ones, they're selling jeans for $500+ sometimes. They got 5 belt loops. I think that's an insufficient, inferior design. I think it's a flaw. And innovation was needed, and they didn't do it. But Wrangler did. They're the only company that innovated and kept going in that direction. So that's awesome. The other thing that's really cool about them is they have smooth rivets. So Levi, man, it took Levi like from 1873 all the way until 1966. That's almost a century to figure out how to quit scratching people's furniture and saddles and stuff with these rivets. So then they do this hidden rivet thing eventually, and even that doesn't quite work because after a while the denim over the top of the rivet wears through, and then you've got the rivet anyways and it's scratching things again. So finally in 1966, Levi goes to bar tax, and then yeah, after almost a whole century, finally you're not scratching everybody's stuff. Well, Wrangler pops up as a young buck in 1947, and they're like, can't we just use smooth rivets? And that's exactly what they did from the get-go, and it's just genius. It's like, why would you not do that? So I love that these rivets don't scratch anything. I also love that they're unique. They're one of the only companies you're going to find these smooth rivets on. And so it's a very distinct aesthetic feature against that vibrant Wrangler blue, and it draws you in. It's attractive. Another thing I like is that the back pockets are kind of high. So they did this, of course, because it's designed just for cowboys, right? So when you're sitting in your saddle, if you've got like your can of chew in your back pocket or some cigarettes or your wallet, you don't want to be sitting on it in your hard saddle. You want it to be kind of sitting behind you. And so that's why they put the pockets a little bit higher. And consequently, one of the things that happens with that, I'm not trying to be crass here. Everybody just kind of knows, like, Wrangler butts, man, that's the thing. And so it's partly because those pockets are a little bit higher. So if that's what you're trying to accomplish in life, if you really were just hoping that a ton of people would be checking out your rear, then, you know, get some Wranglers, and maybe that's going to check the box for you. You can live your lifelong dream of having everybody looking at your butt. But, you know, there is more to life than people checking out your butt. I just like the fact that the pockets are higher because they're really, really practical. And, you know, most people don't tuck their shirts in anyways, and so they're not really going to be seeing that to begin with. Another thing about the Wrangler jean, which is genius in its time, is that they put a zipper on it really soon after they released it. As I said, they did that in 1950. Levi wouldn't follow suit with a zipper until 1954, and they had been around for a lot longer. So I just think the people who designed this Wrangler were a really great team of designers and artists. Because I personally like a button fly, because here I am in 2024 looking back and I want everything to be like uber vintage all the time, right? So to me, that's cool. But if you were actually living in the time period, like you grew up in the early, mid 1900s, I mean, the zipper was the thing, you know? Like you put a zipper on it, everyone's like, wow, this is so much better. This new technology, right? And so overall, objectively, to most people in this world, other than us denim heads, 99% of the people in the world, they're going to want that zipper. And so for that reason, I have to give Wrangler a hat tip. I think that's a really good thing. So it's a little higher, maybe a little slimmer in the top block than a Levi 501, but it's pretty much the same thing. And so what that means is this is a jean that has plenty of room to feel comfortable when you're moving around. You have plenty of range of motion. Obviously, you know, if it's made for dudes that jump up in a saddle and ride around and stuff, there's got to be some range of motion, right? But you accomplish all that without having too much extra fabric flapping in the wind, and you still maintain this kind of trim silhouette. The broken twill fabric is really fascinating to me. I'm not sure why more companies don't use broken twill, because if you could use it, why wouldn't you do that to just eliminate that leg twist, which a lot of us denim heads like the leg twist because it's like this vintage appeal. But objectively speaking, you're not going to want that leg twist, right? So I'm like, why would companies continue to use left-hand twill, right-hand twill if broken twill is available? Maybe you can tell me in the comments below. Maybe there's something I don't know about, like some disadvantages to broken twill, or maybe it's hard to get for companies. Maybe mills are just not making it that much. But there are a bazillion Wranglers. You do the math, I think, this is just a guess, okay? So don't quote me on this ever. I think Wrangler's making like 350 million pairs of jeans a year. Okay, so that's a lot of broken twill, is what I'm saying. And so clearly you can get it. So why aren't companies using it? No more leg twists, right? I don't know. So anyways, let me know in the comments below. The care tag in these ones, the rigid ones, says that you're supposed to wash them hot 3 times and dry them hot 3 times before you wear them. That's to get the excess indigo dye out so it doesn't get on everything, because if you're not a denim head, you don't want that to happen. And then it's to soften the jeans a lot as well. And they're sanforized, so they shouldn't really shrink, but it's also to get like any shrinkage that is there out of it. And what happens when you do that, like if you wash these jeans a ton hot and then dry them hot without wearing them, is causes the indigo that's in the fibers to run a little bit, and it just sort of like swishes it around and generalizes it across the whole jean and then washes some of it out. So like you don't have any like depth to it. It's just like the whole jean color got diluted a little bit. And you end up with this like powdery, really soft fabric that's this really fluorescent kind of blue. It's not my favorite look. I like the depth and dimension you get when you wear them a little bit and get some fades. So don't worry about that. Like if you've seen, yeah, the old man in your town, there's a bunch around here where I live. I love the guys. And they've got that certain color Wrangler blue, and you're like, I don't want my jeans to look like that. Don't worry, because they won't look like that, is what I'm trying to say. If you buy them raw and you wear them like normal raw denim, they're going to fade like normal raw denim. They're not going to look like that. Those guys are wearing either rigid that they washed hot and dried a bunch of times first, or most of them are actually, they don't want to deal with the rigid. We're the crazy ones that want to deal with rigid, right? Everyone else wants the pre-washed jeans because they're super nice and soft. And those ones, they come from the factory that way. They're just like super, yeah, super, super, super vibrant blue. But yeah, it's a great jean. I really believe in this design. As I said, you can just like cut the patch off in the arcuates if you want it to just look like a regular old blue jean, and they'll be great. I think this could be your only jean if you don't have a lot of money. Don't feel like you're getting something inferior. It's a really, really good buy for you. Or if you're just looking to change some things up in your denim rotation, like we always keep getting more and more and more expensive. You'd be surprised how fun and what good it could be just buying some $40 Wranglers sometimes. So yeah, give it a try. Hopefully I inspired you, or at least put Wrangler back on your radar as something that's a possibility. And as I always say, let your jeans take you places more important than the jeans themselves. We'll see you next time.